Vamos dar início então. Só para saber aqui, quem que gosta de Alexa, Google Assistente, essas coisas, levanta a mão. Quem que tem preocupação com privacidade, o que eles estão ouvindo o tempo todo, levanta a mão. Então, nessa primeira palestra, o Maddog vai apresentar para a gente isso, como trabalhar com coisas desse sentido, mais usar o open source. Então, com vocês, Maddog. Maddog, thank you for your presence here. We're very glad to hear about. And it's your stage.
Thank you. Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Unfortunately, that's the last Portuguese you will hear from me today. My name is John Maddog Hall. I'm the president of Linux International, and I'm the board chair of the Linux Professional Institute, who does certification of Linux professionals. We also promote the use of open source software in everything we do. I'm also the president of Project Kawan, a project I've been working on for 12 years, and I hope will have fruition in Latinoware, which will be happening later this year. I'm the co-founder and advisor of Canitas Lucas, which you'll hear more about today also. First of all, I am really old. I started programming in 1969 and have programmed on a wide variety of different systems. I've worked for a wide variety of different companies, both closed source and open source. I've taught operating systems design, database design, and compiler design. But I also like to think that I am pragmatic, which means that I do not spit on people who use closed source software, nor do I spit on people who develop closed source software. I just happen to feel that they are wrong. And so I encourage people to use open source software. I would also like to dedicate this talk to Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper, one of the first modern day programmers. She was the head of the COBOL programming team, and when she developed COBOL, people thought that computers could not be programmed in an English-like language, and she proved them wrong. Now an advertisement. This is the 40 years of the GNU Free Software Project, and it's an interesting thing to look back in the 40 years that the Free Software Project happened, and the benefits to the end user of using the GPL-based software. Open source is wonderful for people who are developers or companies because they get to use large amounts of software developed by other people, used by other people, tested by other people. But because they're not required to pass on their fixes and their changes to the end user may as well be using closed source software. So I feel very strongly about GPL-based software and that people should be able to make a business plan to make money using free software. Now, I have a relatively small home for the United States. It's not huge, but I do go through and try and make it more energy efficient. So I've replaced all of my incandescent and fluorescent bulbs with LED bulbs. Some of them you turn on and off, and some of them can be dimmed to how you want it, and some of them can even be made different colors. I've replaced many of my electric sockets with smart sockets. So anywhere in the house, I can say, turn off the fan in the bedroom, or what is the status of the fan in the living room? And I can get that. I can even control my home from here, from Brazil, seeing what the status of things are, turning them on and off. Because I am an old man, and sometimes I forget to close the garage door, and I'll be halfway someplace and remember that my garage door is open, and so I need to close it. Or I leave lights on, or I'm out late and I forgot to turn on the front light, and you could see when I was walking up the steps, I have problems in seeing them. So I can turn these things on and off as I need them, because I am old. And so I came in relatively early to Google Home. And Google can control most of these devices. I can be someplace in my house and say, turn on the kitchen light, or turn off the kitchen light, or turn it on to 50%. And I can see the state of all these things. And I can monitor and control these devices, like I said, from any place in the world. And people say, Maddog, that's awesome. What is wrong with that? Well, there's a lot of things wrong with that. Because as a technical person, I start to look at the impact on the internet of my house, and I see that these devices are sending a lot of data, a huge amount of data. I mean, you're just telling it to turn on and off. I mean, you should be able to do that with a 1 and a 0, right? But no, it's megabytes of data. And you wonder what they're talking about. Now, I used to tell my students of the kitchen of the future, where the refrigerator would have intelligence, and the microwave oven would have intelligence, and even the garbage disposal would have intelligence. And so I would say to the refrigerator, I would like to have breakfast, and the refrigerator would say, oh, I have these eggs and this milk, and these are the things you can make. And the microwave oven would speak up and say, oh no, you're not going to put those eggs in me because they're really old. You know, those eggs should go in a garbage disposal. And I would come down in the morning and I'd find the refrigerator arguing with the coffee maker. You know, said this may be what they're doing in the background. I don't know. And the voice detection is extremely sensitive. So I will be in my bedroom and I will say, okay, turn off the kitchen light. And all of a sudden the speaker in the bathroom, which is 2 rooms away, will say, okay. Now why is it answering? I don't know. Why isn't it the speaker in the bedroom? I don't know. And what else are they listening to? Are they listening to my husband and I having intimacy in the morning in the bedroom? That's kind of scary. And where does that go? And the other thing is, you have to use these keywords to activate it. Hey, Google, do this, or okay, Google, do that. Well, the problem is, as I was discussing earlier, my husband's name is Ugu. He's Brazilian. And Ugu, I'd like to have breakfast. And this Google speaker will say, okay, what do you want? And this is a problem. And sometimes, and after all, I am in the computer industry, and I will be on a video call with somebody, and I'll happen to mention this company by its name, and all of a sudden 3 or 4 devices will spring to life. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Google Assistant. I want to use the keyword of Shazam. Now, I think that's perfectly nice. Why can't I say Shazam and have the whole thing start? Why do I have to say, hey, Google? I mean, Shazam, that hardly ever comes into the English language, believe me. I mean, I've gone for 40 years without saying the word Shazam at all, and I think I should be able to change my word to do that. And then the other question is, what happens if Google gets tired of Google Home? Well, I mean, they could sell it off to somebody else, some company I really don't like, and or they could just drop it altogether. Do you remember Orkut? How many people remember Orkut? Yeah, Orkut was really great in Brazil. I actually liked Orkut a lot better than I liked, the Mr. Zuckerberg's product. Mm-hmm. But, marketing in the United States wins out, and the Orkut people were sucked away into Facebook. And now people don't like Facebook. So what are they sucked away into? I don't know. So along comes Home Assistant. Home Assistant is a complete open source system to control homes and businesses. Now, a lot of people say homes, but it's equally applicable to businesses to turn on lights, turn off lights, do security things, whatever you need to do. And it is a software backplane with thousands of plugins to help you do different things inside your house or business. And it has available voice control that you can train and feedback, and you can change it to say Shazam, as your control word. That's perfectly okay. And it also can be integrated with various calendars out there, Google Calendar or, Apple Calendar or any calendar you want. And Home Assistant today is the second largest and most active project on GitHub, second only to Linux itself. And there's thousands of people in the world community, and a 250,000 installations of Home Assistant. 13,500 contributors to this project, and 2,285 plus integrations. Now, it's been going on for 10 years, and it's just getting even stronger. Now, what do you need to do this? Well, it runs on almost anything you can think of. It runs on Windows, Mac OS, Linux. They have a special edition for the Raspberry Pi. There's a company called Oldgrid, which runs little computers that have no binary blobs in them at all. It can run on your generic x86 64-bit system. And they have a special platform that they made that you can buy or not that has Zigbee into it to communicate with your devices. It's called Home Assistant Yellow. And so if you want to support the project, give them a little money and stuff like that, you can buy the platform Home Assistant Yellow from them, or you can use an existing platform. That's okay. Now, there's also in this platform integration with Alexa and Google Assistant and other platforms. So when I wanted to integrate this with Google Assistant, I didn't have to change anything in my house. I could just put Home Assistant in there and then gradually over time un-Google myself. Okay? And but so if you use Google Assistant, you have the same privacy concerns and maybe network overhead and stuff that you had with Google Assistant by itself. However, you can put other things and new things just under control of Home Assistant and not under Google Assistant. There's also integration with other types of devices like the Plex Media Center and various companies that make light bulbs and things like that. So Philips and IKEA, integration already exists for those. And it also integrates with Z-Wave and Zigbee and can be figured to be very secure. Now, once you get it installed, you can have a nice dashboard set up to control your devices, to get information from them, things like that. You can have a drawing of your house and say, okay, I want the lights to go on in this room and the sound to go to this room, so forth and so on. You can find out what the temperature is outside, inside, a lot of things. So once you set this up for somebody, they don't need to know anything about Linux or even anything about Home Assistant. They can control it from their little dashboard. And part of this control is utilizing something known as blueprints. So the community has developed thousands and thousands of blueprints that say, hey, this is how I set it up for my house with my devices and things like that. And you can use that blueprint to start with and then tune it to whatever you need. And finally, there's something called YAML, which is a scripting language. It basically says, if this happens, then I want this to happen. So it's a very simple scripting language, and it follows the MQTT protocol to talk to devices over the net. Now, there are some issues with Home Assistant. it's really not set up for mom and pop right now. In my estimation, you really have to have at least a little technical knowledge to set it up. Some of the documentation is not mom and pop friendly. And when I talk about mom and pop, I'm talking about my mother and father, that if an electronic device had more than 2 buttons on it, it was out of it. I mean, you've all had that experience, right? Your grandmother comes to you and says, can you help me install this app on my Android phone or something because I don't understand all the buttons? Okay. It's not for them. But you can set it up and then maybe teach them how to turn things on and off and stuff like that. And you can also set it up to monitor them, which you might want to do for your mother and father. And the good news is that you don't have to implement everything at one time. You can implement a few things and then over time implement the rest of them. It has a very active and helpful community, and it has relatively good documentation. There are books out there about, Home Assistant and how a lot of the documentation is free on the net, and it's a very open system. And this could allow an excellent business opportunity for somebody to go in, install Home Assistant, set it up for maybe a large house or maybe a small business, and show them how to save money by turning their lights on and off, having more control over their business. Here's a picture of the Home Assistant yellow system. It uses a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4. And it plugs right into the board. The board has built-in Giganet, Ethernet, and comes with a Zigbee module built in, which is also working towards Matter compatibility. What is Matter compatibility? Matter is a protocol for talking to intelligent devices that's being followed by Google and Alexa and a lot of the other larger things to say, let's standardize on this so we can go across all these devices and across all these different systems. And so the Home Assistant community is moving towards that and following that and tracking that. You also have a nice slot for an M2 expansion. I happen to have a terabyte M2 expansion module on my board because I'm going to be storing more stuff on there than just Home Assistant commands. So I put that on there. I actually have a 4 terabyte M2 connector here on my laptop because I like data. But you could also put it on a Caninos Lucas Labrador system. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this is a system that we've been designing and building and getting ready to sell as part of the Caninos Lucas project at the University of Sao Paulo. It's taken a long time to get to the point where we can actually sell these, but I have been assured by somebody in the front row that this is going to be happening very soon now, maybe in time for Latino wear. And we also have these little computers called pulgas. And of course, that's Portuguese for flea. This is the Labrador because it's a friendly dog. And this is the flea because all dogs have fleas. We were going to name it the Chihuahua, but we realized that most people hate Chihuahuas. And we are going to come out with continuing with a range of different processors and things to be able to easily sell these inside of Brazil and Latin America. So let me say for a moment, part of the motivation of this project of Caninos Lucas, of Project Kawan, that why I've been doing this for over 12 years, coming to Brazil and doing this, is because I believe in Brazil. I believe in you. I believe in the fact that you are the 12th largest economy in the world. And I cannot understand why you're sending billions of reais outside of Brazil to companies in the United States or to companies in China or to companies in Europe, why aren't you developing it here? Why aren't you taking that revenue and sticking it in your pockets? Local revenue that buys local food, local housing, and pays local taxes. Why, when you give free tuition to your state and federal university students, why do you not give them the opportunity to stay here and produce these products and have a good life in Brazil? And so this is why I've been doing this for 12 years of my life. Here are some resources for you if you're interested in Home Assistant. There's a huge Home Assistant community right here in Brazil on Telegram. And there's a nice book, Building Smart Home Automation Systems. It's brand new, came out September 23rd, 2023. And it's very good. I've downloaded it. I've read a lot of it. Unfortunately, it's in English, not Portuguese. But you can, look at that, get ideas for how you want to use it. And with that, I'll take any questions that you have. I think we have a few minutes for that. And thank you very much for your time.